In November 2008, California voters approved Proposition 1A, a measure to fund what was intended to be a world-class 200-mile-per-hour electrified train network. The Bond Act established rigorous, legally binding performance standards. The core proposal was a continuous high-speed rail line connecting San Francisco and the Los Angeles area. The state had to deliver a 2-hour and 40-minute travel time, cap the cost at $33 billion, and operate entirely without public subsidies. This chart shows the scale of the state's financial miscalculation. Cost estimates for just Phase 1 of the project have since risen from that initial $33 billion to a range between $89 and $128 billion. Instead of a sweeping statewide network, the only segment currently under active construction is a 119-mile stretch in the Central Valley. Critics point out that these massive concrete structures sit isolated, serving only a fraction of the population originally promised. The frustration over this lack of progress reached a crisis in 2025, when the Federal Railroad Administration cited a failure to make reasonable progress and moved to rescind $4 billion in federal grants. America's most ambitious green infrastructure project has become a $100 billion symbol of inefficiency. To understand why, we have to look at the specific institutional and geographic traps that have paralyzed the authority for over a decade. The project's first major error was driven by the pressure to capture federal money before it expired. The authority rushed to begin Central Valley construction to meet a 2022 deadline for $2.6 billion in federal stimulus funds. Chasing those expiring dollars forced the state into a culture of reactive management. They started building before finalizing structural designs, relocating utilities, or fully acquiring the necessary land from local owners. This premature start carried a heavy financial penalty. Between 2023 and mid-2025 alone, approximately $1.6 billion in change orders piled up as contractors were forced to work around unfinished designs and site access issues. State audits eventually revealed an organization dangerously over-reliant on external consultants. In many cases, these outside managers were responsible for overseeing their own industry peers, prioritizing project continuation over state budget control. The political pressure to secure federal dollars created a cycle of reactive decision-making, poor documentation, and the constant, unpredictable escalation of costs. Outside the boardroom, the project faces a monumental physical barrier. The flat Central Valley gives way to the Pacheco, Tehachapi, and San Gabriel Mountains, ranges that must be conquered to reach the coastal cities. Reaching the coast requires boring 40 to 50 miles of tunnels through the California Coast Range. Engineers must navigate the Franciscan Formation, a layer of fractured, sheared rock, while grinding through several active seismic fault zones. This geography is prohibitively expensive. Traversing the Pacheco Pass alone is estimated to cost up to $8 billion, a primary reason why the project has focused its limited resources on the relatively flat valley floor. Beyond the terrain, the state must pay a democracy tax unique to American megaprojects. Relentless environmental litigation under state law allows almost any interested party to challenge the project in court, stalling progress for years. In the Central Valley, the authority ran into fierce opposition from farmers. The rail line often cuts diagonally through rectangular agricultural plots, bisecting irrigation systems and making it impossible for large farm equipment to navigate. Landowners have spent years suing the state for severance damages, the loss in land value that occurs when the tracks split a property. Farmers point to soil compaction and increased commute times to reach their own fields as permanent harms. Unlike nations that build high-speed rail by decree, California is trapped by the costly friction between a rigid geography and fiercely protected democratic property rights. To compound these physical challenges, the project lacks a dedicated national trust fund. While the U.S. interstate highway system has stable federal backing, high-speed rail must survive on unpredictable discretionary grants. This forces the project into a political boom and bust cycle. Federal support shifted dramatically as the Trump administration terminated nearly $1 billion in grants, a move that was only partially reversed years later. With federal funding now accounting for less than 10% of the budget, the state has turned to its cap-and-trade program for survival. A 2025 deal secured a guaranteed $1 billion annually from the auction of carbon allowances. This billion-dollar guarantee provides much-needed stability, but it creates a temporal trap. At this funding rate, it could take over 60 years to reach Palmdale from San Francisco, as every year of delay further inflates the final price tag. This slow progress has polarized the state. Critics label the project a boondoggle, while supporters highlight that the construction has already created over 16,000 jobs and stimulated $24 billion in economic output. Supporters also point to secondary successes, such as the authority's $714 million contribution to the electrification of the Caltrain corridor in the Bay Area. This investment has already reduced emissions for thousands of daily commuters. Ultimately, Sacramento faces a massive sunk cost dilemma. Having spent $15 billion and secured 99% of the land in the Central Valley, abandoning the project would leave the state with a monument row of abandoned concrete pillars. To find a way forward, the authority is pivoting in 2026 toward private investment. They hope to leverage the steady cap-and-trade revenue to attract private equity and form public-private partnerships for the most difficult segments. This strategy faces a fundamental catch-22. Private investors want a connection to the massive markets of San Francisco and Los Angeles to guarantee ridership, but the state needs private money to afford those very connections. The immediate milestone is to begin high-speed passenger service in the Central Valley by 2033, a target that represents a decade of delay from the original promises made to voters. The authority is currently working to secure a train set vendor to begin testing on the newly laid tracks, hoping to eventually prove that the system can sustain speeds of 220 miles per hour across the California heartland. The California High-Speed Rail is the ultimate stress test for American ambition. Whether it is remembered as a visionary triumph or a failure of governance won't be proven until the first trains finally run.